We're live. Hello, Friday, 11:01 a.m. Central, February 10th. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been a wild ride. If you've been following the stock market, if you've been following Tesla stock specifically, if you're interested in the Elon Musk world and all the different things that are going on that side of the hemisphere. I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but anyway, yeah, I see he laughed, so it wasn't. Hans and Bob, community members, thank you both very much for joining me today. I really appreciate you guys coming in. Producer wife is such an expert. She knows first thing I'm going to do is pull up the stock price because it's down 5%. Yes, amazing. Hans, Bob, how are you guys doing today?
We're doing well.
First. Awesome. Bob, how you doing, sir?
I am tremendous.
Awesome. What do you guys want to talk about? Who wants to hit it off? Who's got
I think the stock price, I'm going to be quick on it. I think I mentioned it last time. So, I'm no technical guy. I have no idea what I'm talking about, like most things. But like the technical people I was listening to, they were saying the top was about 214, 215. That was fine, by the way. We went to 214, by the way, running the button. And they think it's healthy if we take a dump in this pattern. And they were thinking, like, I've heard different numbers, but they were thinking maybe down to 155, maybe as low as 144, because there's a whole bunch of support at those levels. But that would be bullish because they think we'll go from that point, we'll go up above 230. And once we go past 230, we're running. Because that, in essence, they believe 230 basically changes the pattern entirely, and we are bullish thereafter. So I think that the fact that the stock is going to take a breather and people are going to take some profits, that's perfectly natural. And just like people should have gone crazy when it went to 100, they don't have to go crazy when it goes to 210. It's just a natural cycle. The business looks great. I mean, the news has been tremendous.
Yeah.
It's been, really compared to how it was like 6 months ago, it's like absurd. And then again, that kind of tells you how the psychology plays in. We're too negative when it's negative, and we're too positive when it's positive. And that really influenced the stock price. So I think the stock price kind of sometimes is kind of just irrelevant to what we're talking about.
For real. Yeah, I mean, that's so brilliantly summed up there. I'm like surprised this hasn't happened earlier. This like 5% down day, because it's so producer wife has a 1 month chart up there. Click on year to date, the YTD one right there. Perfect. I mean, since we started the year, this thing has been on an absolute tear, nonstop tear. So it does make sense for it to pull back a little bit. Some folks take some off the top. We did have some earnings too last night or this morning. I know Lyft was down like 30% today, and I think Uber is down as well. If you do, if you search for LYFT on the search bar, producer wife, just kind of want to put it in comparison, sort of what's driving the market. LYFT, yes, Lyft. This thing, they reported. That sucks, bro. Could you imagine owning that stock? My God, man, my heart just sank, and I don't even own it. Yeah, so that's one of the big movers in the market today. It literally dropped by a third in one day. Hans, where's your head at with this stuff?
I mean, that's terrible for Lyft shareholders, although I don't know why anyone would be a Lyft shareholder, to be honest. Like, it seems pretty clear that Uber is the big winner in that space so far. And there's a lot of competitive challenges that Lyft is going to face. So, yeah, I don't really have a good understanding of like much runway, or I'm just not super knowledgeable about Lyft on whether or not they're cash flow positive, cash flow negative, kind of where they sit as a business.
Yeah. They have negative EPS, it looks like, just looking at their statistics there. So it looks like they're losing money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we do see any sort of autonomous ride-hailing service get launched in a meaningful scale in the near future, then that is hugely threatening to both Uber and Lyft's business model. And yeah, I just would not want to be sitting in their position.
Yeah.
But strategically, I mean, what do you expect when you basically don't have an original business model to begin with? Like, they were always just trying to capture second place against Uber. And, you know, okay, that might be somewhat successful, but like, where's the real value add that Lyft has provided to the marketplace other than just being a competitor?
Yeah, that's a great point. Can you pull up Uber's stock chart real quick too, producer wife? UBER should be yeah. Just I'm curious to see how they're trading in tandem. Okay, so they're not nearly. They're basically down as much as Tesla is. Bob, you went off mute. Go for it.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, first of all, I have to apologize. I'm a little colorblind. I tried to match Han's uniform, but I missed slightly. Two, what I was going to say was I heard, and I don't know how this plays in, but Hertz apparently bought slightly less the number of units than
Half.
they could have. And I don't remember how it was presented, whether it was presented up to, because a lot of times those agreements, they agree to buy up to a number as opposed to a specific number. But that was presented like in an offhand way if that was like a under purchase. But I don't really know if it was. It was like just under 500,000 and they could have bought 1 million, I think, something around there.
Yeah, I saw it. I don't know if you could find this, maybe producer wife, but there was an article where looks like Uber only purchased 50,000 or 55,000 out of the 100,000
You mean Hertz? Yeah.
Teslas. Yeah, Hertz, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that probably, and the speculation that I've heard that makes sense to me is that it's just pricing got a little bit too high, because one of the things was that Hertz was not getting any special pricing on that agreement, and so they were just buying at whatever the market price was. And so they probably had kind of a minimum, like they don't want to place orders that are going to be too far in the future. Like they don't want to go over a certain wait time, and they probably don't want to go over a certain price to get those in their fleet. And so now that wait times and prices are down, they'll probably be a little bit more aggressive on those purchases, I would assume.
Yeah.
And yeah, the goal was to have, I think, all of those by the end of last year. But anyways, yeah, with supply, it doesn't surprise me if it takes them a little bit longer.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and read a couple snippets here for those that are on headphones. By the way, thank you all so much for joining us today. Make sure you can hear us okay, but I'm sure you can hear us and see us okay, because the producer wife hasn't said anything in the private chat. Hertz took delivery of half its massive Tesla order of 100,000 vehicle electric cars. Hertz disclosed that it took delivery of only half its massive Tesla order of 100,000 cars. However, the numbers don't add up. Okay. So I'm curious. I scroll down a little bit for me. Hertz announced an important effort. Okay. Hertz fleet in the Americas peaked at 428,000, of which 11% were Teslas. So that's roughly, call it, 50,000 ish. Okay. All right. So I'm not really sure. Okay. So that it does seem like that's the case. Okay. Bob or Hans, I wasn't sure if you guys had any other thoughts here.
Yeah, I was just looking at the articles, and it said, it was citing Hertz that the company expected to have all 100,000 units in their inventory by the end of 2022. Didn't say they would. So,
yeah, shortage of supply. The one thing I've been tracking really closely is how the Model 3 is performing versus the Model Y from a sales perspective ever since the EV tax credit got changed on the Model Y side with the MSRP change. And with the Super Bowl coming up this Sunday, I don't know if Tesla's going to have any cars to be able to capitalize on the onslaught of EV commercials that's going to take hold here. If we look at last year's trend that Tesla shared when the Super Bowl hit, I think the interest in the company went up like twofold or threefold in the near term. They disclosed it in one of their earnings reports, I believe it was, if I remember correctly. And now we're in a world where Tesla's not going to be able to capitalize on that, unfortunately. Well, they might have longer wait times, but we're back to this sort of like delivery wave thing again that seems to be unwinding. Do you guys have any thoughts there? Because it's like, for me, it's like Tesla's trying to get away from this delivery wave, and then as soon as they pull a lever for pricing, they're back to the delivery wave. It seems like they're not going to be able to exit it.
I remember the last Super Bowl, Polestar in particular, they ripped Tesla directly. And I think they thought that was going to be positive for Polestar, and it spurred Tesla's sales. It was great for Tesla. So I think the only thing that I guess they have that's available is if they decide to reduce further the Model 3 price for the time being, and they dump the rest of that inventory on the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it really increases demand, then that will just put Tesla in a better position to raise prices and capture a little bit better margins. Like, other people are spending money to market EVs, and their marketing spend allows Tesla to potentially charge higher prices and get better margins. You know, what could be better?
Yeah. It's just such a weird time. It's such a weird, I think I'm overwhelmed by the amount of positive stuff that came out. Like, I don't know which one to hone in on. You know, like there's so many things that are happening, but I do wonder if now we're on this like holding pattern with the story where it seems like all the pieces are in place for Tesla to truly. So I was on a space. I'm going to change, not to change the topics, but it's like along these lines. And I was on a space last night, announcing the. By the way, if you're in Austin on Wednesday, March 1st, the Tesla Owners Club in Austin is hosting a Investor Day after party at Clive Bar on Rainey Street. They're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the club, and then we're also going to have a panel hosted by me, where we're going to have folks in this panel that are going to be a mix of institutional and retail investors, very well known in the Tesla community. And Sandy Monroe is going to be one of those folks on the panel. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And it will be live streamed. So we're also going to live stream it from location to this channel and other channels as well. But there was a lady on the space last night, and she asked, you know, what Tesla has this sort of goal of hitting largest company in the world. You know, they said 5 years from now they want to be the largest company in the world from market cap perspective. And the question was, what is needed to get there? Like what's missing? You know, like what do you think Tesla needs to get there? And I'm like, and you guys tell me if this is the right way of thinking about it. I'm like, time. It doesn't seem like they have to do anything else to really get there. The pieces are in place. The battery focus is there. The manufacturing focus is there. The margins are there. The demand is there. So now it's just like, okay, just scale it. Just go. You know, the competition doesn't seem to be eating away any sales. If anything, it's helping them with the Super Bowl, right? So what's missing? You know, are we just in a holding pattern now for this to come to fruition? How do you think about that, Hans?
I think the two things besides time, which, you know, time will solve these regardless, but one of them is just battery material supply. So in the medium term, how much supply do we have to create batteries, scale that up? And then the other piece is software as a service margins, which I feel very strongly that those will be incorporated into various products over time. You know, the more that they expand into what transitions the world to a sustainable energy future, not just like sustainable transport is only one part of that whole giant master plan of a sustainable energy economy, a sustainable energy future for the world. There's lots of other products that are involved in that besides just cars. And I think lots of those products and cars as well have major opportunities for software as a service margins that will ultimately just catapult Tesla's net profitability into the stratosphere.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so I mean, it's performance, it's volume. I think, you know, I'm going to look at it differently, not time, it's volume. So it takes time to get the volume, but it's volume because the cash rolls off from the volume. They're making money on each car. The more cars they sell, the more money they make. I mean, it's not a complicated scenario. I think on top of that, it's energy kind of maturing because we could all see where it's going. Really, I mean, the writing is on the wall. We know where it's going. It's just starting going. You know, we talk about the car business being in its infancy. The energy business is not even born yet. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a fantastic additive to the bottom line. You know, the other thing is obviously we have to get, like, there's practicalities. We have to have the factories built out. We have to expand in that regard. And I'd expect like part of the March 1 presentation will be announcing at least one factory. I mean, I heard again recently, Mexico, the 2 locations in Mexico, that seems to be going strong. I heard again about Canada and taking advantage of the mining there. So I think it's just volume, and there's no way anyone else can catch up. I don't think they're in a financial position to catch up in volume. And as long as Tesla continues to build the factories, improve the equipment, I don't think they're catchable. It's just a matter of us being patient.
Yeah. The one thing that stuck out to me too was on Ford's quarterly call. I was watching like a Meet Kevin video. That I use him to like get caught up with like the mainstream side of how they like a mainstream retail. What's weird is like we have mainstream media and then we have mainstream retail, which I mean, and this is not disrespect to Meet Kevin. I think actually does really good work. But he's like he doesn't think so. From that standpoint of like really, I find him valuable for my stuff, but I'd love to hear why you don't. But the mainstream retail side of it, and then he highlighted this piece of nugget from Ford's quarterly call, where Jim Farley, the CEO, which I have a lot of respect for, to be honest, I really do. He said that they don't expect to be profitable on the EV side until 2026. 2026. And so what came to mind there is, what is the biggest thesis that we hear from the bear side and people that are doubtful about Tesla's prospects to have a very long runway towards extreme profitability and potentially becoming the largest company in the world from a market cap perspective? They're always like, well, they're going up against companies that have expertise in this already. Like they have it figured out. They know how to scale. They know how to make a bunch of money building cars. And they're really good at it. So why do you think Tesla has such a competitive advantage? You don't have anything that's a competitive advantage. And now you look at this picture that has developed in the last really 15 years since Tesla's launch of the Roadster back in 2008. It took 15 years for Tesla to get to sort of this point where they're generating a gigantic amount of profit as a newcomer. Started 2019 is really when they started creating profitability, and they've been profitable for 4 years straight. And it gets getting more and more profitable. You compare it to somebody who has been in the car industry for 100 years plus in the Ford, and now we're getting signals from the company that's taking this transition the most seriously out of any legacy car maker that I can think of, at least one of the most serious. Volkswagen, and with these especially, and Ford with Jim Farley, I would say those are the top 2 that come to mind. And even Hyundai and Kia, honestly, I think they're doing a good job. Hyundai especially, not in crazy volumes, but they're trying, and they're kind of like under the radar. But these guys openly said, we're not going to reach profit until 2026. And the Mach-E, which is like their SUV, their car that's supposed to be taking a large chunk of sales from the car market, at least in the United States, launched back in 2020. It's been 3 years, and they're selling what, 60,000 globally, maybe 100,000 in 2023, and then they don't expect to get to profitability until 2026. What does this say for the rest of the auto market? It seems like it's game, set, and match. When the guy that's trying their hardest, as hard as it possibly can, to actually make this a viable business, they're not going to get to profitability in 2026. And what's Tesla going to be at from a production perspective by then, right? This year, 2023, they'll be at roughly 2 million. 2024, 2.7 million, if you don't want to give them 50%. 2025, with the launch of the compact car, I don't know, 3.54 million. 2026, 6 million, 7 million cars per year. And that rivals where GM, Volkswagen, and Toyota are right now from like a total car perspective. I don't know. So it's like that's like those things that keep coming to my mind when this topic keeps getting brought up. And then to Bob's point, then you're not even talking about energy, and not even the bulls are talking about full self-driving, because we're all like, what the hell where is it? I don't know. It just seems like a spring to me. I don't want to give any financial advice, but I feel like the Tesla story from the point of like the domination story that a lot of like bulls that are very, very high on the stock that have been saying is like, hey, this thing is going to absolutely dominate and it won't even be close. Seems like that spring is like super spring loaded. And starting this year, it's gonna start decompressing because all those pieces are in place. And now it's just a matter, like you said, Bob, it's like, okay, volume. Now it's just volume and hit it. I just went on a huge rant and I'm really sorry. I hogged up a lot of the mic, but I just wanted to get it out there. Not sure if you guys have any thoughts around that or if you guys want to switch topics too. I don't care. Yeah.
Well, that's just why we're excited for Master Plan Part 3 to finally get revealed and hear the latest and greatest from Elon and Investor Day, because those are the types of topics that he's going to address directly. And then, on a company like Ford, I just can never get away from thinking about Clayton Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma, and just how these legacy OEMs are kind of stuck in that trap right now. And they're facing not only competitors like Tesla, who are pursuing a top-down go-to-market strategy, but then other competitors that are pursuing a bottoms-up strategy like BYD from China, who has just structurally a lot lower cost of goods sold. And it's a scary position to be in. And specifically like Volkswagen, that would be terrifying to be them, because China was a huge profit center for Volkswagen that really carried the company. And now they are having to compete with Tesla on the high end and BYD on the low end in China's market specifically. And I think their Chinese market share is basically cratering. And if that's the thing that you're counting on to float your boat from a profit perspective, that's just no bueno. And
good Spanish.
So we'll see how long it takes for them to come back, or for BYD to make it to the United States and compete directly with Ford. I think, like you said, Ford does have the best legacy strategy. And, I think if I was them, I'd try and sell off as much of the ICE business internationally as possible. Like, get rid of every single factory, get rid of every asset while you can. Because one of the notable points from the Innovators Dilemma was that basically none of the companies that they had tracked, there were only like 2 companies that they tracked that made a successful transition from one generation of electronics architecture to the next generation of electronics architecture. And both of those companies basically did a spin out that they,
which they're doing,
right sized. Yes, exactly. So the point was, you cannot pursue a new market and a new market like size and grow with that market when you have an overly large entity that is requiring a larger amount of profit to move the needle. So you have to basically have a startup that is matched with the size of the market that's new and beginning and getting traction. And then that new startup scales as the technology enters broad mainstream adoption. And so Ford is the only one that we see that's kind of pursuing that strategy. I think that's one of the areas where Deese really fumbled the ball, that trying to get this giant behemoth Volkswagen company to transition over to EVs, when EVs, like the people inside Volkswagen who are saying, our company's not going to survive this, it's going to bankrupt the company to make that transition. They have a lot of valid points, because the company is too big, has too much baggage, too much overhead, and that's why you need that smaller, more nimble, and then more appropriately sized company that can grow with EV adoption. And then you have to figure out how to manage a transition from one to the other. So I think that all of that is in play, and it's just going to be really chaotic in the auto market, for the next 10 years. So
absolutely wild. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. So the chances of BYD being able to expand into the United States ballooned this week. was a little joke there, a Chinese balloon joke.
Ah,
All
what are
right.
you talking about?
So this is what I think was going to happen to Ford, GM.
Can I just give you props for your puns, by the way? I think your puns are legitimately top tier. I just want to give you that. Seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not a unanimous decision, unfortunately. So I think
I am of the opinion.
I appreciate that. So Ford and GM, I think they're going to either end in some kind of partnership. I don't necessarily mean together, but that will be how they resolve it. There'll be government intervention. Ford or GM will spin off their EV business, and I think Ford said it at one point in time, but the family was against it. The Ford family was against it, but they talked about it. And I think maybe eventually they'll do that. Or they'll file bankruptcy. They'll clean out all their legacy debt, and they'll basically operate as an electric vehicle company, starting afresh. And they'll be able to roll at that point in time. If they're only selling electric vehicles and they're making money on it, and they're not laden down by all their debt and all their ICE inventory, I think they can make it.
Yeah, I agree there, and I don't know how else they survive, right? Because they just have so much freaking baggage to carry forward. It's completely unbelievable. It really is, and I am so excited to see Ford's Q1 like earnings with the separate entities with Ford Blue and Ford Model E, which is the two entities they have. Because I am dying to see what the electric vehicle side of the business looks like, because we can take that data set and then go back to where Tesla was and say, so how many units have they sold so far, Ford last year? The electric, like 70,000 units in the whole year, something like that, under 100,000. We can go back to a Tesla earnings report where they were right under 100,000 and pull up the quarterly report, and we can do a side-by-side analysis and see how each company is structured. And then if the thesis of the Tesla bull is Tesla is way more efficient, is way better at running their business than any legacy automaker is, because they're starting from scratch. And even if these companies decide to spin off, you should still see that clear separation. And that is what I'm most looking forward to, is being able to actually see that, because this will be the first legacy automaker that has done that. No other legacy automaker has given us insight into what the electric side of the business looks like. And Ford would be a phenomenal proxy for this, because from a cultural standpoint, Jim Farley, the CEO, is saying the right things, but also doing the right things. And they're trying the best they can with their know-how to move forward. And so we can take that report. This is how I'm thinking about my thesis, right? I'm taking that report and I'm saying, okay, this is top 20% approach from a legacy car maker to get to profitability from the EV standpoint. And then you start tracking that forward. And then you track it with Tesla and then see what happens, right? And if our thesis is right, we know what's going to happen. And if our thesis is wrong, then Ford Model E, the electric vehicle segment of Ford, is going to be gangbusters and great. And they'll reach profitability way before we expect it, which would be phenomenal. I couldn't be happier for them. But then on the flip side, if you look at their gas car business, you can start to see, okay, so the theory is as electric vehicles become more mainstream, it gets more and more expensive to manage this car side of the business, because you're laden with all this freaking debt. You have all these factories, you have all this labor, you have unions on top of it that are going to fight tooth and nail to force inefficiency into the system to try and retain employees. And you should see that in the COGS. You should see that in the COGS by your, your volume goes down, but your COGS ain't really changing. Your cost structure is not really changing. So I'm also it's like, dude, and that's why I really think Jim Farley deserves all the credit in the world, because doing this is so incredibly brave. It's so brave to literally open your doors and say, this is what we're doing, and this is what it looks like. And y'all can decide what you want to do with it. Go ahead, Hans.
Yeah. Yeah, I think literally the only thing harder than starting up an electric car company from scratch in roughly 2008 and forward is actually transitioning a legacy OEM company to EVs.
So true.
I think companies like BYD have a lot easier path there. And then even the Koreans, Polestar, Hyundai, Kia, those companies, I think, have a little bit easier transition as well, just because they don't have all the union overhead and all the politics that we have here. So I've seen some banter back and forth on Twitter about, how the unions either in Germany or in the United States will be open to negotiating, and, they want ultimately to preserve jobs, and they won't put the preservation of jobs below being really tough in negotiations. And I'll just say that that's not my view on unions. It's certainly not my experience with them. So early on in my career, I worked at a cable manufacturing plant that had been bought out in, I think, the 80s, because they were previously, I believe, owned by Alcoa, and which was a major aluminum company.
Yeah.
And they had it was a complete union shop, and they had negotiated incredible benefits and working environment. They had like 6 weeks of paid vacation and all kinds of stuff. And the
Europeans are like,
union
that's
went
it?
into, yeah, well, here, yeah. Anyways, so they came into the negotiations after they had this sweet thing, and they were pushing for raises and more paid vacation. And the corporation told them flat out, no, we will either come to an agreement or we're going to shut this plant down. And the union could not come to an agreement, and they shuttered the plant. Another company came in and bought it up and then reemployed all those same people. And they basically ended up taking a 30 to 50% decrease in overall pay package when you factored in all the benefits and everything to get reemployed, because the union got greedy, and they ended up really screwing over their workforce. But the people doing the negotiating had a lot to win and not a whole lot to lose by just negotiating hardball, and they overplayed their hand. And this is kind of a story that plays out periodically with unions. And so, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see some very poor decisions get made in this whole transition by unions.
Got it. So the UAW is at risk to actually lose a lot of membership here, because if they play too hard of a ball with Ford and GM when they're trying to become as efficient as possible to move to EVs, because, it needs less parts and it needs less machines, so you need less people. But, unions ain't going to give up fees. That's not how unions are trying to make a profit, which is completely wild. I don't understand that, right? That's so weird. So those are fascinating points, and thank you for that insight. Real quick, I do want to bring this up, and I'm going to throw it over to Bob, because I know you probably have some things you want to share. Can you pull up the thing you have stage, producer wife, please? The Innovator's Dilemma, which is a book that if you're familiar with the Tesla story and you'd like to learn more about how the investing thesis, the bull side of the investing thesis plays out potentially, this book gives incredible insight into how huge companies that seem like they're completely invincible collapse because they do not know how to transition into the new technology that's taking hold in their industry. And this is what one of the primary bull theses are. I don't even know how to say that correctly for the Tesla story. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's really interesting to think about when you realize, so the author Clayton Christensen was a professor at Harvard Business School, so taught tons and tons of MBAs. That was his job. And the essential thesis of the book is, when you follow the MBA playbook on how to manage your company and it gets too big, it dies. So all the things that we're teaching you are a recipe for disaster past a certain point. And then the other thing that I would mention is that the one of Clayton Christensen's core tenets that is part of his theory of disruptive innovation, which, that term gets thrown around a lot. It was actually coined, I believe, by Clayton Christensen in this book. But he saw that as low-end disruption only. So the over and over again in all the case studies that he looked at, it was a new competitor coming in at a lower price point and then eating up market share of higher price goods over time. And so he classically said that Tesla was not adhering to the theory of disruptive innovation because they were starting at the top of the market and moving down market, instead of starting at the bottom of the market and moving up. And so that's one slight difference in that when you read this, you would come across. But I think this theory has been expanded since then by other people who basically you just need to find an undefended point in the consumer product space or whatever, but in the marketplace, and get a foothold there in that undefended part of the market and then expand to the rest of the market from there. It doesn't really matter if it's low end or high end.
Yeah. No, those are great points. Yeah, my biggest takeaway is like when you have bloat as a company and something new comes along, if you don't have the right talent, you're dead. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And the bigger you are, the more assured, like the more likely it is that you die, because it's harder and harder to transition.
Well, yeah, the longer you've been around, the more rigidity steps in. And so you can even have the right talent, but they are basically hamstrung and not able to make the transition that's necessary.
That's right. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, so I older than you guys by like 6 months, I believe.
Maybe.
I remember, like as a kid, I would see these stores, and and I'm in LA area. I'd see these stores, chains that were prominent, and I thought when I saw them, that was going to be there for the rest of my life. That was kind of my expectations. And as time went on, 30 years, 40 years, I would notice that certain chains would disappear, companies would disappear, and it would be shocking to me because at some point in time they were vibrant, vibrant and busy. But I kind of, in my mind, I think of like businesses having kind of a life. There's a life expectancy, and absent something, they kind of die on their own. And it surprised me. And when Hans was just talking about, he was describing the situation, it was actually a company I was thinking about. There was a company called Fedco that was like a wholesale department store that basically got replaced by Costco. It was the same model, but Costco did it much better. So Fedco disappeared. It was around in my childhood, but completely disappeared. So anyway, that's kind of how I think about it, is kind of businesses have a useful life and then they disappear and something replaces them that's better. Two, the problem with, this is the comment about unions. The problem about unions, at least I find, is, and Farzad kind of referenced it, is the management is so corrupt that they steal so much money from the members that they basically tie the hands of the union. They're and there's been many occasions. Jimmy Hoffa exists. I mean, even if you're 10 years old, you know who Jimmy Hoffa is. He's like the epitome of like the quite shady union leader, buried, I think, in the Meadowlands, wherever he is. But it's corrupt. And so their purpose, although back in 1900 was protecting the health and safety of the workers, which of course was a good idea and saved probably hundreds and thousands of lives. But in the current time, their value is lessened. And they'd be smart if they were thinking about retaining jobs. They just have to shift industries. So they're United Auto Workers now, but why not be United Robotics Workers? Why not like shift and train their own people? I mean, that's what their money should be used for. That's what the dues should be paid for. And so three, we're talking about building cars, building EVs. So there's basically three companies in the United States that are pure EV plays outside of Tesla: Polestar, Fisker, Lucid. Lucid is, basically
In
barely hanging.
trouble.
Yeah, barely hanging on. Fisker has not made a car, and Polestar is okay. Polestar seems like it's got it, but those are brand new startups. So we're talking about legacy that are in the, they're in the hole. The startups have a tough enough time just kind of getting their gear, getting everything in gear, getting supply chains, getting to be vertically integrated. How many years did it take Tesla to get vertically integrated? And listen, during COVID, that saved Tesla's ass, being vertically integrated.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, the production would have been terrible. They wouldn't have had access because everybody else had those production and supply problems. Anyway, those are my three.
They grew during COVID. That's how insane this was. Like they grew. Like their supply chain got larger during COVID. Literally everyone else, the opposite happened. And then people will say, "Well, it's because they're smaller." That's not how it works. You secure the supply chain in proportion to your size. That's how supply chains work. The fact that they were able to secure and it's become especially difficult when the supply chain gets smaller. Thank you so much, Buck, for the beer fund. Thank you, longtime supporter, community member. Thank you so much, Buck. If the supply chain is this big, and then something happens where it makes it this big, right? All the big players are going to go like, "That's mine. That's not yours. That's mine." And then they'll pay so much to make sure that they get it. And they'll get priority because they know they can drive the volumes to those people. And so the smaller players get completely screwed over. And the fact that Tesla was one of the smaller players and they were still able to secure a bigger piece of the pie, I don't think they get enough credit for that. That was completely insane. That was completely and absolutely insane. Like looking back and when I think about, well, I get why people would be upset that they didn't grow 50% year over year in 2022. But then they'll get credit for growing 80% in 2020 and 2021 and whatever those numbers were during a shrinking year for the supply chain. Completely insane. Those were great points, Bob. Thank you so much for bringing those up. Hans, anything on your side? No? Okay. What else you guys want to talk about? Let's do another 20 minutes of topics from y'all, and then we'll do an extended Q&A. How does that sound? Sound good? Anybody have any topics?
Yeah, I want to talk about factories. So, do you think the factories are going to be announced at March 1? Do you think it's going to be more than one? Do you think there's going to be one announced in 2024? Do you think I'm asking like a whole series of questions here.
Keep going. Yeah, you're a lawyer. It's
fine. Going to be Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, or elsewhere? Do you think they're going to continue to export more vehicles from China than they will sell in China? That's like 5 questions.
So which one do you want to go hit first?
You can choose whatever one you like.
Choose whichever I want. Yeah. I do think at least one Gigafactory will be announced at Investor Day. I would be surprised if they don't, because if the theme is extreme scale and master plan part 3, like, cool, what are you doing for that? It's like, oh no, we don't have another factory for that. Okay, weird. So I think it would be part of the discussion for sure. Location is up for grabs. Mexico seems to have the most smoke behind it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So it seems like that would be one of the primary ones. And it would make sense given how insane the demand is in the United States for electric cars right now. So having something in North America that would take advantage of the EV tax credit and the IRA and how it's built from a cost structure for Tesla to take advantage of that, I think Mexico makes a ton of sense. And I think the export question from Shanghai, I think maybe this year, if the Chinese economy doesn't rebound super strong and Tesla doesn't have an ability to say max out production, although it looks like their rebound are super strong since the new year, like they're basically back to normal. I think that equation for sure tilts back to them shipping more or selling more in China from that factory once the compact car gets released. There's no way it's not. There's no way. So as a net production, yeah.
Don't you think extreme scale, though, would be met with 2 factories? If Elon comes on March 1 and says, we're going to build 2 factories, just like they did when they built Berlin and Austin.
I don't know if number of factories necessarily is, I would agree. I think it sends a stronger message that says extreme scale, here's 3. I think that would be incredible. The other thing, though, is that Tesla seems to be able to squeeze a lot more out of one factory than any other automaker. So if you look at Fremont, back in the Lumni days with Toyota and GM. I think it was the partnership. The max capacity there was 500,000 with seasoned automobile experts, right? Now Tesla's at nearing 700,000 as a newcomer. And this is before, this is their first generation factory, which is completely insane. The first generation factory, they have 30% more production than the two biggest experts in automotive with GM and Toyota back within the early days.
But that does include the tents too. So
hell yeah,
it is in a larger footprint. And yeah, but that, that is a lot more vertically integrated as well. So you've got a lot more that's going into the cars. I think with all of the smoke that we've had on Gigafactory rumors recently, that basically they're coming down to the wire on trying to get some agreements signed. And I think they want to make some announcements on March 1st. And I think all of the talk between Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, all these places is them working down towards getting those agreements finalized. I definitely expect to see multiple gigafactories announced at Investor Day. It wouldn't surprise me if they go with 4. That they've done 2, but that 4 could also be expansions. And so we'll see how that goes. One of the rumors that I saw that made a lot of sense to me that I like is potentially in Indonesia setting up a factory to produce solar and not cars, because I do think that that's going to be a huge part of Master Plan Part 3 is just addressing, okay, hey, part of growing sustainable energy generation is going to be solar. I mean, we've had discussions on, I think that Tesla's going to go all in on them producing solar. They're going to leave wind to third-party suppliers. I could be wrong, but that's kind of my thoughts on that subject. So I would not be surprised to see them say, okay, we're going to be ramping up solar generation. And then especially with the announcement image for Master Plan Part 3, that invitation that is the kind of inverted color scale of the side bodies, but it looks a lot like, if you back away from it, what it looks like is a solar cell. And so I don't think that that is accidental by any stretch of the imagination. I think that that's going to be a big part of Master Plan Part 3. And then on China demand, we heard the rumor about the 9-ton Gigapress going to China. I think that they're probably closer to producing the next generation compact vehicle in China than people are expecting. And so, yeah, that could very well be, and even if it's just an expansion of Giga Shanghai, I think once that car is released in China, it might cannibalize a little bit of Model 3 and Model Y demand in China. And so you'll see higher exports from Shanghai of Model 3 and Model Y. But then it'll be a long time before the China-made compact car for the Asian market can even meet demand just in China. Like, that's not going to be exported for quite some time.
That's so true. Bob, go ahead. I'm going to step away for 30 seconds, but go for it.
Yeah, I would like them to announce on Investor Day that in 2024 they would open, and I'm making up the locations. 2024, we're going to open up the factory in Mexico. 2025, we're going to open up the factory in Canada. 2026, we're going to open up the factory in Indonesia. And 2027, we're going to open up the factory in North America, in the New England, Northeast, Florida, wherever it works best for supply chain. And I think that would provide them enough future capacity, and it would also spark such interest in the stock. They'd have to revalue the stock because the future capacity would have been enhanced, because we could talk about what they're going to do in the future, but without the actual factory capacity, people like Gary Black, they're not going to count that as in the bank. And once it's there, it's going to really spur the stock price too. Plus, it's going to, I think, meet the goal of expanded capacity. So that's what I hope he announces. I think the other issue is that they have to have the management to be able to do the ramp up. And if you have too many going at the same time, in the early stages, I can imagine that being a big challenge. So I suggested staggering like a year apart. I don't even know if that's enough time, but I would like that, a staggered kind of setup.
Yeah, I could see that. Are any of those factories that you're thinking about going to be dedicated to energy storage like Lathrop? Because
I'd like to
that's,
have
we've got to hear, there's got to be more energy storage build out over the next few years as well.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like the new Nevada expansion where it was mixed between semis and energy. Maybe a couple of the factories kind of split between auto and energy, and to generate the capacity. And I like your idea about Indonesia doing the solar panels, because obviously labor costs are going to be much lower there too.
What would be the thing that would surprise y'all the most that is realistic to be announced at this thing? Like, think about like what are the things that are most, like I've heard rumors of like they're going to show the bot building a car. I'm like, no, they're not. They're not going to do that. But like from a realistic standpoint, like let's and this might be an exercise to see just how realistic we are. What would be the thing that would pleasantly, like really truly surprise you the most? Like what's the thing you really want announced that is totally within the realm of possibility?
I would say the platform. They'll announce the platform, the new platform. I think that's reasonably to be expected.
Well, they said they were going to.
I think
right?
That's why I'd be expected.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
what a cop out.
I think the thing that I would be excited about probably the most that is within some reasonable amount of expectation is just showing us the 4680 line in Giga Austin that is running flawlessly and ramped to, I don't know, 80 or 90% of rated capacity. That would be huge.
Yeah.
How about the final prototype for the Cybertruck ready to go into production?
I mean that's a good one. I think they have to, right? Because they have the mules going out there right now. Yeah, like the beta production cars. That's a good one.
Well, that was one of the questions that I had in my mind. They say, the most advanced production lines in the company that they're going to show off. Well, there's 3 options that they have to do that, and maybe it will be all 3 at Giga Austin. You've got the best Model Y line in the company running in Austin right now, as far as the most cutting edge. But then you do have, Cybertruck potential, and that 4680 line that I mentioned. So, and I think 4680 line is probably what they will go with, just because it's the most core and critical of the 3 to the future of the company. But man, I sure would love it to be the Cybertruck. Like, I want to see them. Like, how are they gonna origami fold this thing and all the like the new production on Cybertruck? That's going to be exciting. So I hope that we get to see that. That would be awesome.
I have 2. I think there is a chance that they'll unveil the Cybertruck configuration page on Investor Day, and they'll be like, hey, for the ones that we expect to, was it you, Hans, that said that they might announce like the first the Cybertruck delivery, they might be July 4th, which would be freaking amazing. Was that you who said that? I forget who said this.
I don't think it was me. Yeah.
But could you imagine if Cybertruck, the first deliveries are on freaking Independence Day of America? In Texas, baby, the its own country. You know what I'm saying? The message that would send. If I was the first one, I would take an American flag and a Texas flag. I would put it on the bed, and I would bring a freaking AR and just shoot it from the freaking windows. I'm driving down the stage, bro. It would be amazing with fireworks just shooting off from the freaking bed of the truck. So that's one. And these are like, go ahead.
They'll sell more in LA.
They will.
LA is the biggest truck market in the world.
Yes, it is. And Southern LA, yeah, that's true. Southern California.
Southern California, where I live, is the biggest truck market in the world.
Yeah, but y'all don't like guns.
And they say for aesthetics, not necessarily for requirement.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So that's one. I think they could release that. This is me, like, again, this is I would be blown away if they do that. But I think it's within the realm of possibility, because we're starting to see those beta builds. We're seeing those let me actually, after I wrap this up, I'll send you something, producer wife. There's like a new picture of the Cybertruck that we should look into. There's that one. And then the other one, and again, this is like realistic but incredibly optimistic, I hope, is the Tesla bot walking. The Tesla bot walking. I think that would be cool. Not like building a car, but because on AI Day they were talking about, hey, we have this thing that we unveiled, and they brought it out on the freaking mannequin, like on the thing, and it was like moving its hands and arms. I'm like, okay, and they're like, we're weeks away from this thing walking. Okay, so it's been weeks now. Let's see it. Let's see it walk. I think that would be super freaking cool. And maybe they could start framing the story around, hey, extreme scale, we're going to need innovative ways, and maybe in the next 2 years, now you can see this thing is walking, and it's a thing that we've proved that our technology from the AGI perspective for this thing to be able to walk, there's no reason why it shouldn't be able to handle equipment. So we expect this to be useful in our factories in 2 to 3 years time because of this development. So those two things are my hopes.
Yeah, that would be incredibly exciting. And I think that
sorry, go ahead.
is a really good observation because he's talked about Tesla bot and the labor that's needed in the factories. I think that is, if you're talking about how do you build factories quicker and get them ramped up faster with less capex, bot is definitely part of that plan. They've said that they're going to be talking about AI at the event, and so that would be super exciting. I really want to have a conversation with James Dalma and Scott Walter about what the factory will look like when it's a hybrid, when you integrate digital self-management and bots and a whole factory vision system that can do all the safety requirements. If you can keep a car from running into something, you can also keep a bot from banging into a human. And so part of what makes factories difficult to manage from a safety perspective is, you have all these dumb bots that can't see anything, and you can't, as a human, be close to them because they might hit you. And if they do, then you're the one that's definitely in trouble in that scenario. And so, Scott showed the robot zoo images on Dr. Know-It-All's channel quite a few times. You have to feed the zoo. Well, you can eliminate the zoo if you have Tesla's vision system doing a whole factory model that's dynamic in real time, and it's identifying all the people in the scene, all the robots. And so can you imagine an agile production system where you can have a piece of equipment be running full speed, and then at any point, a human or a bot can walk right up to that robot and say, hey, stop, and like make a quick tweak on the fly and let it get right back to what it's doing. And not having all of the space requirement that's necessary to provide all the safety caging and all that stuff. I'm excited about what that factory, that system of production looks like, and I would love to talk to some people that really are deep in the weeds and could help us understand how revolutionary that might be, how it might actually work, and what is and is not feasible there.
I would say it just gets denser and you create more separation between man and machine. That's where my head goes to. Yeah,
that's the thing where I think maybe you're wrong, though, is that I don't know that it's more separation between man and machine. I think it's a better, more seamless integration between man and machine, because you need the creativity of humans to be able to get into the system and make the agile changes. Like all of the iterations, I think, are going to be done by people, at least for a while. I don't think we're at a point where AGI can do the iteration part.
But like as a percentage of total time, the machine will be operating 99.99999% of the time, and then the human will come in and make a tweak. Yeah, I mean, but that's separation.
Yes,
that's separation.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I agree and disagree with both of you.
Surprise.
Yeah, and what I think is going to happen on Investor Day is Andrei Karpathy is going to walk in. He's going to walk up front,
Nope.
stand next to Elon, and Elon is going to peel off Andrei's face and body, and beneath it will be Tesla bot. Surprise!
Wow. Have you heard about the latest drama, by the way, with Andre and Elon? Yeah. Is that why you brought it up?
Yeah. Yes.
For those that are not aware, Andre Karpathy, by the way, I'm very happy for him. I don't know why this happened. Who knows? I think people might be reading too much into it. But Andre Karpathy, the former head of Tesla AI, is now joining OpenAI to work on their projects with ChatGPT and all that other stuff they're working on. And Elon Musk unfollowed Andre hours after that announcement. So is there something going on there? Maybe Elon's upset.
Well, maybe I think they're in direct competition now, right?
Maybe.
Because Tesla's doing AI and theoretically Microsoft is connected to ChatGPT, so maybe Tesla is competing with Microsoft.
But he follows Sam Altman, who's like the head of that project. You know, it's like weird.
Did Altman ever work for Tesla?
No.
Well, I think that's the distinction.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, Elon has openly said that he's not happy with the direction that OpenAI has taken. That, basically they got captured by Microsoft, and he was never a fan of that. It was supposed to be an open thing. And so, I don't think that he is super enthusiastic about the direction that OpenAI is going right now. They are definitely doing some incredible groundbreaking work in the field. And hopefully Andre's conscientiousness, I know that, they care about AI safety at OpenAI, so it's not like they don't, but I think that Elon Musk does not give them credit enough. He basically thinks that the dangers are too dangerous and that they're not taking the proper precautions, and especially at the behest of like all the pressures that they have to meet now that they really are in bed with Microsoft, make it harder to maintain all the safety objectives.
Go, Bob.
Yeah, what do you think, just kind of a separate, but what do you think about Starlink's choice of not letting the Ukrainians use Starlink for purposes of drones? Not use it in military capacity, just use it for civilian communication? Because they've gotten a lot of crap, pushback in the last couple of days over that. What do you think about that?
That's like so controversial. I love it. I think I get why people are upset about why they're not able to leverage that system for drones, but drones will lead to death in war in some way or another. And I don't think I think the original intention behind having Starlink in Ukraine was to give the Ukrainians an ability to defend themselves. And if Starlink is not being leveraged from drones, then Starlink is being used to actively be offensive on their operations. Although you can also make the arguments like, well, the Starlink technology does allow them to plan, like they're communicating with each other to plan an offensive thing. So that's one of those, it's so beyond my way of like how I would be able to come up with a solution for that. So it's I get it. But that's why war sucks so much. It's like, it's just everybody, like, it sucks. It sucks really bad. I don't know. That's my answer. It all sucks.
Hans?
I don't really yet have a whole lot of context on knowing the details here. It's not an area I've done a lot of research, but I'll just say that, Elon Musk has been pretty generous in his provision of support to Ukraine, and just because he won't be 100% on board with anything and everything they do, he gets a ton of shit. And so I think it's even more generous of him to continue supporting them, even though he gets shit on a ton for not supporting them even more than he supports them, which is more than almost anyone else supports them already. So yeah.
That's a great point.
And I saw another test case. I know I'm bouncing around, but I saw a test case for Tesla bot. The earthquake in Turkey, I can only imagine, if you had like a whole bunch of bots that you could deploy to clear wreckage, to move materials from buildings where there's no risk, of them dying or anything. That would be incredibly helpful, I think, in a situation
So
like
true.
this. Because, you only have a limited amount of time. You got 72 hours, basically, and that's kind of it. And if you could get like the manpower in, because we know they have above human strength, they could pick up materials. I'm not saying they are like Superman, but if they could pick up a couple 100 pounds of a piece of concrete, I really think that would be invaluable, especially in the early stages, because it's so hard to get people into those places.
It's very true. That's one of those like life-changing things about technology that it seems like such science fiction to think about, but why wouldn't you do that? I mean, that's where I can understand how AI and robotics can be so incredible in saving human lives and making like the lives of all humans on Earth better through that kind of thing. It's just rescuing humans where it's extremely dangerous to send other humans to do that work. You just send things like they're not conscious, they're not alive yet. So you send them in and then they take out, they remove the rubble and they save human lives. How incredible is that? Like what a freaking story that is. It's absolutely incredible. That's a great point. Okay, let's do this. Let's do the Cybertruck photo. We want to hit that first, and then we'll enter an extended Q&A, and then we'll also have a poll that will wrap up. So this is we were talking about the Cybertruck potentially going into production, being announced at one of my theories is that one of the things they could do is announce a configurator for Cybertruck at Investor Day. And this is the latest picture. Is there any way for you to zoom in on that? Perfect. Look at that. Producer wife killing it. That looks like a Cybertruck to me. That is potentially ready for the roads. So the biggest differences here from the other ones, that for those that are not familiar, it's got that crazy looking thing on the bumper. I don't know if that was there on the alpha version. It's got some lights under the fascia as well. I don't know if that was on the production version. It's got lo and behold side view mirrors on the sides, obviously. It's got a ginormous windshield wiper, which I hope extends as it goes out. Like how I think Mercedes had one. It had a Mercedes 260E, 1987. It was as old as I was, and it saved my life in a wreck. But it had one windshield wiper, and it was in the middle, and then it would go like it will like extend itself at the corner. So I'm guessing that's what that one would do if they have it as one. And I'm trying to see what else is there. It looks like they have different rims, like they have production rims on that thing. And the aspect, like the angle of the photo makes it look like quite small, like, in relation to the lines. But I saw it in person. This thing is not, it's not small. And you can see the person in the truck too, so you can see how big the car is.
It looks tiny. I mean, I saw it in person. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this doesn't really give you the proportions.
Right. But it does give you some detail as far as like what they're working on. Do you guys see anything else in there that's worth pointing out? Because the shape is basically exactly the same. That's a beautiful skyline. Okay, go ahead. Any thoughts, Hans? Yeah.
Okay. It's not on this picture, but they did show video here recently where you could see the 4-wheel steering at work as well. So I know that we had talked about that, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. So that's also exciting. I'm stoked to see all the innovation, like all the technology that Elon has been teasing on how this thing's going to be. I mean, it almost sounds like he's going full Model X Fabergé egg again on the Cybertruck. So we'll see. But I mean, he'll definitely be able to sell them, like, if you do a quad motor plaid version of the Cybertruck, you'll be able to sell these things in large volume at way high enough margin to do all that cool stuff, to at least for the upper level trims.
Yeah. And I don't know if I got more used to the look or not, but this, I mean, it's a shocking design, but with some of the tweaks they made with like the blinker light on the bumper there, under the fascia and above the bumper with the lights there and the side view mirrors, it actually kind of looks like something that would be on the road, like with some of those things that they added. It's still crazy looking, but it looks like a legitimate thing that could be on the road.
I was gonna say in this picture, unlike when I saw it probably like 2 months ago, it looks much less severe. So like all the corners and the angles look a little bit, and I don't know if that's real or because we're seeing a flat kind of picture,
Yeah.
but it looks different. I mean, in person, I'd be afraid I'd cut myself almost on the
Yeah.
edges. That's how sharp they look.
Rob keeps reminding everybody, yeah, like proportions and all that stuff can be way distorted
Misleading.
by lens, like different cameras having different forms of lens distortion. So yeah, it's hard to say. I think the size and scale and severity, I mean, it almost looks like, you know, some of those lines in the front are curved, and I just don't think that that's going to be the case.
It
Here's
could be.
Here's the big surprise. The new platform is going to be the platform for the Cybertruck, and the cost is going to be like half of what we thought it was going to be.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I'm not predicting it. I'm just stating.
Okay. That's what it's gonna be. Okay. The one thing that does, I'm curious to see though is the frunk opening. If it really is the top, like that, because you can see the lines, right? There's an obvious there. If it's not one of those where like it will open like a mouth, you know, maybe like the where the light is will flip down, and then where the trunk is will flip up. If it doesn't do that, then I think the F-150 Lightning has a way better frunk, because like the ingress to that frunk seems to be like from the top in, whereas the F-150 Lightning, you open that thing and it's just you just go straight in, versus this one you would have to go above and in. You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense? So I'm curious to see if that mouth will open down and then it will also go up. So we'll see. Very curious to see how they're going to approach it. And they might, honestly, because you see underneath, there is room to do that. And maybe that's the thought process behind having the lights, like use that space for something. And then you would have room for that mouth to open up down and then put the lid up.
Yeah, I was wondering
We'll
what's the alternative use of those two lights? Actually,
probably fog lights.
Yeah, actually, the three lights, right? I see three.
Yeah. Well, you have
Maybe
that. You have the big mouth, right? You can have that big light on the fascia, and then you have the two lights on the bottom. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe off-roading.
Yeah, what I was saying is maybe the bottom lights are for illuminating the entire frunk if it lifts from that section.
Okay.
So instead of like where the line is, it actually be the line at the bottom. That would be kind of the surprise where it would lift.
See. I can't wait. I hope they show this on Investor Day. Just show us what the hell it's going to look like, please. I want one now. Okay, let's do our poll result. We were running a poll about 20 minutes ago. Let's see what the results are. If producer wife has them staged. I hope I didn't put you on the spot. I hope they're ready. Maybe they're not. Uh-oh, she's typing away frantically. Anyway, so while we have those poll results coming up, just to give you guys a reminder, we'll do these every Friday. Starting at 11 o'clock Central. Hans and Bob are both community members. Let me go ahead and read this poll real quick. Will Tesla bot be shown at Investor Day? 60% say no. 39% say yes. You're a bunch of this latest Tesla stock thing has just jaded everybody, including myself. Good. This is how you this is how you get better. Thank you all very much.
If you ask Gary Black, he'd say he'd prefer if they don't.
He'd prefer if they don't. That's right. Yeah. He wants to focus on the other stuff. Go ahead, Hans.
I prefer if they do.
Yeah. But yeah, Hans and Bob are both community members, and along with anybody who's got a nice little symbol in the comment section. These guys have supported the channel through Patreon and YouTube as well. So thank you both very much for your support. It means so much to me. Just to make an announcement, we started this last week, but on these Friday forums, what we're doing is, I'm on YouTube. These videos make revenue through the ads that they get shown to y'all that you always skip, which please do. But that's how YouTube makes money, and then YouTube shares that money with the creator. So what we're doing now is with my community, we're taking these community forums, and I'm taking half of the proceeds from those forums, and we're putting them into our community fund. And that community fund, the community, so our community will decide what to do with those funds. It could go to charity, it could go to a project. We could buy Tesla stock with it and use it for something. I don't know. But like the thought process here is my community comes on every Friday with me to have these discussions. And I'm extremely grateful for that because, you know, it's not just content, but it's actually we sit down and we throw around ideas. And you know, it would make me feel better if there's some sort of revenue share between myself and the community. So that's how we're going to kick it off. I don't want to disclose the number because we're going to keep that private, but it is significant. It's there's a few bucks in there that we could do some stuff with it. So if you do want to be part of the community, do consider you know, becoming a patron, a YouTube supporter. But half of every single one of these community forums, the income will go towards that fund, and then my community will decide what they want to do with it. It's completely up to them. So we'll see where it goes.
Another way of saying what Farzad just said is after the community forum today, Hans and I are going to Vegas.
No. That's not how it works. But yeah, no, but honestly, thank you guys so much for your continued support. This is so cool that I get to do this every Friday, and these conversations are very stimulating for me, and I hope they're stimulating for the yeah, I think that one we can probably justify. She deserves it. Yeah, yeah, maybe that's some of the conversations we had. Maybe we'll put it towards like a meetup or something. But yeah, there's so much potential. So yeah, so thank you all very much for your continued support on that. Okay, let's do some Q&A. Yeah, how's that sound? All right, let's do it. Let's put some cool music in the background, and then we'll do some questions. Producer wife from James Dillon. Always on the show. Thank you so much, James. Question: what does the panel think about the wildest thing that will be announced on Investor Day in March? Giddy up, the wildest thing. So we did like a realistic thought process on what we would see. But what's the wildest thing? I'm gonna say Tesla bot serves drinks to everybody.
I'm just gonna say that Elon is selling SpaceX and he's joining the PGA Golf Tour.
That's pretty wild. Taking it to the extreme. Hans, what about you?
I really liked Richard's thing with Tesla bot walking out, but it looks like Andre to begin with. So we'll bring that one back.
There you go. You asked for wildest, you got wildest. There you go. Thank you, James, for your question. All right, let's do the next one. Jay Lizard, another name we see often. Thank you so much, Jay. Question: what is the best thing that Elon could do to help with the disaster in Turkey, Syria? The world is watching. Yeah, I mean, I think the infrastructure probably got destroyed out there, obviously, and so communications is probably super tough. So I'm guessing Starlink is an obvious one, and if he hasn't done it already, I would imagine that would be part of it if they do have coverage over there. Any thoughts there?
Maybe provide some vehicles for use. Because there's probably a lot of vehicles that were destroyed or can't get around. But I was thinking Starlink also seems like the most obvious.
Powerwall.
I think energy infrastructure too. Yeah, like they did with Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I was there. I was at our warehouse actually shipped those power walls. It was awesome. And that was I was 6 months at the company, and then literally it happened, and somebody was like, all right, we need to help them out. Let's send some power walls, and then literally that night we had a shift come in and we just put together power walls and we shipped them, and we gave them a nice little note as well from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So shout out Bethlehem. It's freaking amazing. That was so cool. Next one. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate your question, sir. All right. Brad, question: does Tesla announce they will produce more than 1,000 Optimus bots this year? No way. No way. What do you guys think? Okay, there you go. Thank you, Brad. Next question. Steven, what other use cases can the used 4680s for besides vehicles? I mean, energy is an obvious one. What do you guys think? Is there any other use cases for 4680s?
Yeah, it'll be packs too, or like Optimus packs. But yeah, primarily energy, vehicles, transport.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4680 form factor will be whatever. They talked about boats being the next accessible form of transportation to be electrified. And then after that, VTOLs. I think the 4680 form factor is probably the right form factor for boats. I don't know about eVTOLs.
What do you think, Bob?
You don't want to hear this. Maybe large vibrators.
Oh, guy. All right, here we go. I didn't want to hear that. Demonetized. No, just kidding. Look at this. You screwed over the community, Bob. Jeez, come on now. I'm kidding. So what? Okay, I was gonna say windmills, wind turbines, right? You can put them in the poll, but this is just going off the rails now. So this is the next question. There's too much there to be talking about. Thank you so much. Beach Crow question: where's your Embrace Juju shirt? You lost the bet with Yashu. Yes, I did. Thank you for reminding me. I had a bet with Yashu that on the State of the Union, the President Biden would say Tesla, and if he doesn't, I would buy a piece of merch from Yashu and also donate a piece of merch to Yashu's community. So, but I'll do that on the next stream that he has me on, just to make it into a raffle, and I'll be sure to be wearing that Juju shirt on his stream. Don't you worry. I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of my Juju. Don't worry. Let's do the next one. Thank you for reminding me that I lost that bet, Beach. Really appreciate that. Fail Train S question: what do you think of the? By the way, shout out Fail Train's always on these live streams. Freaking amazing. What do you think of the Don comments about sodium ion electrolyte battery development by Tesla? Perhaps in 5 years we'll have sodium ion instead of lithium in half the batteries. Have you guys heard about this?
I heard some brief discussions about this. It's very expected that they're exploring other chemistries, and it would definitely be exciting to mitigate the risk of supply chain bottlenecks with lithium, for them to have some other alternatives. Sodium is obviously one of the big leading alternatives out there. So I would love to see, I think, based on my understanding, the most likely application for these would actually be energy storage. So, I don't know, definitely. So anything that Jeff Don and Dalhousie University are researching on are more than 5 years away from mass production. So that's the first thing I would say there. So there's no way that we see more than half of Tesla's batteries in 5 years being sodium ion. That's just not feasible. But yeah, long term, that could be a huge component of things. If the research works out, if the chemistry is viable, and if it's mass producible.
Bob?
Yeah, I'd heard this too, but I really think that the time frame is much longer too. So I think it'd be closer to 10 years than 5 years, to be quite honest.
A great resource for this would be Jordan Gissigi at The Limiting Factor. Mm-hmm. He will give you great insight into that. Yeah. You can find him on YouTube.
I mean, just think about when Tesla purchased Maxwell Technologies. Well, they already had proof of concept, like lab scale, bench scale, DBE technology at that point, and we're years down the line from that, and they're still trying to get the first like full scale 4680 line with DBE on just one, not even both the cathode and the anode, going right now. So yeah, batteries are really hard to produce in large quantities.
And DBE stands for dry battery electrode, correct? Yep, perfect. All right, next one. Thank you, Fail Train. Always appreciate your support. Teen Alley, question. Sounds like a rapper, dude. That's awesome. If Andre knew FSD was imminent, there is no way he would have left before the biggest unveil in tech automotive history. Do you think level 5 full self-driving is truly realistic in 5 years? Yeah, I don't know if that... I think that's a flawed way of thinking about it, in my opinion. I think if Andre knew FSD was imminent, I would argue that he would totally leave because he's reached his goal and he wants to do something else. And on the interview he had with Lex Friedman, I think Andre was very open about saying that the role he had at Tesla was a little bit more managerial and leadership in nature, where he really wanted to get into the weeds of programming a little bit more. And maybe he lost some passion for that specific type of work. So I wouldn't say that. I personally think people are very different in their approaches, and I could 100% see why he would want to move on. I mean, if I use myself as an example, I was nowhere near the close of the tier that Andre is. Like, don't let me compare myself to him. But when I left Tesla, our service network was about to be in the best shape of its life ever, and we're about to go, on route to 20 million cars per year. But I left because I felt like it was the right time for me to move on and go to the next thing that I'm passionate about, which it just happens to be this freaking YouTube thing, which is insane. So, yeah, I wouldn't have put it past them. Any thoughts there, Hans or Bob? No? Yes?
Yeah,
I would say that.
Perfect.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, go for it, Bob.
Okay. So I was going to say, knowing Andre as close as I do, and we're good buddies, I would think that he wants a challenge and he'd leave if it was done. That would be my view. And I think the second part of the question is really not the question. The correct question is, will Tesla have regulatory approval of level 5 FSD in 5 years? Because I think within 5 years, it'll be functioning at level 5. Whether they can operate on the road and whether governments permit it to operate that way is a separate question.
Agreed. I think the advancements in AI as of late are proving that out. Sorry, Hans, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that I would say on the second part of the question is, to me, the real question is not, is level 5 realistic? It's, where does value occur, and when can Tesla monetize that value and start building a SaaS business on top of their autopilot software? And to me, that happens long before true level 5. So yeah, I think that it's an interesting question, but not necessarily the question that I'm most interested in as an investor.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually was on Yashu's channel earlier this week or last week. I can't remember when, with Nicholas Gibbs, and actually I think it was Monday, and that topic came up, and Tesla could make a lot of money already with a level 3 or level 4 that allows the driver to just not really have to pay too much attention and just kind of chill in the driver's seat. And if that is a $50 a month service, let's say, who wouldn't buy that? That's like insane. $100, $150, $200. There's a level where everybody will buy it, right? And that will generate incredible amount of profit for Tesla.
Functionality does not equal the regulatory approval. That's kind of the difference.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I was thinking? Let me just get this out here real quick before we go to the next question, because I've been thinking about this a lot. If people were really worried about driving, and if people really value driving, why are the Toyota Camry, Toyota Corolla, and the Toyota RAV4 the best-selling vehicles in the world? Those cars are the worst driver's cars in the world. They are awful. They drive like crap, but they're super reliable. And so for me, it's like that is how I think about this self-driving thing, is like, of course people are going to get it if it allows them to not drive in any capacity. 80% of the population works that way. If everybody loved to drive, the best-selling cars would be the Mazda Miata, the Honda S2000, the BMW M5. These will be the best-selling cars. But they're not, because most people don't want to drive. Most people just want to get from point A to point B. And yeah, anyway, so it finally clicked for me. I finally had a data set that said, okay, yeah, this kind of it's talking to the thesis a little bit. I don't want to use, cause and effect kind of thing. But anyway, let's do the next couple questions and I'll take it from there. Philip, question. What do you do if Tesla show a prototype of 3D casting for compact at Investor Day? So I'm guessing the question is like a single piece casting for the entire compact car. I mean, if they show a prototype of how they're going to do it, that has a lot of implications. That means that they literally are just making supersized Matchbox cars, and the production rate for those might be millions per year at a single factory. How do you guys think about that?
I'm going to do 3 sets of crunches.
I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 3 sets of crunches.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That one was okay. I should
I
have
love
called
the
you
puns.
the best. Yeah. You should have just taken the comment.
I kind of expect, I don't know if it'll be completely single piece, but they might do like half the car, and put two half car castings together. But I'm essentially expecting something like this. Now, I don't know if it would be unveiled at Investor Day. I think that they can't get too. They're in a tough spot with their Gen 3 platform announcement, because unless they're ready to start producing them in massive volume like now, which you don't give guidance for 1.8 million vehicles for 2023 if you expect to produce any significant volume of Gen 3 platform cars. So to me, that says, okay, we're not expecting any significant Gen 3 production this year. And so then you can't really get into too many details about exactly what the car is, exactly what it's going to cost, because then you're looking at Osborning your current lineups. So I don't know. Like, I just don't expect that level of detail yet.
That's a good point. All right, and let's do one more. Last question. Stefan. Question. Is crash testing done on Cybertruck, or do they have to wait for a production model? Yeah, I believe the way this works is they do... that is a good question. I think they probably have done a ton of internal testing on the beta production builds, but they have to send a few vehicles through their actual production line to NHTSA, I believe, and they would have to give them a green light that it's good to go from there. So they do have to... Actually, I don't know. How the hell does this work? I'm like speculating here. That's a great question. I don't know. Does anybody know in the comments?
I think you're correct, by the way, but not 100%.
It has to be, right? Because they can't be sending a beta.
Yeah, it has to be production. It has to be actually a production vehicle, because that's what's going to be on the street.
Right. It has to be use those machines, and they have to use that process. Like, you can't be like, oh, it's kind of like this, don't worry, and then they go with production, and it's completely different. that would defeat the purpose of it. Yeah. Hans, go ahead.
People have been talking about also being able to use the suspension on the truck to prepare for impact, kind of like they do the pre-tensioning of seatbelts, and how that would affect safety in the Cybertruck. It's really interesting to think about, but also, like, how the heck do you validate that in crash safety tests? Like, I mean, maybe it's heavy enough to where you can lift the front end way up and transfer your loading in an optimal direction without... the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to get that thing airborne. It is super heavy, so maybe you can keep it on the ground, but yeah, all of that. It seems like you would need to rethink your safety testing approach in order to validate that system with real world data.
That's fascinating. So, like, you loosen up the suspension right before impact, so you can, like, really, like, have that sort of effect of, like, transferring energy as much as possible through as many parts of the body as humanly possible, but not so much that it literally turns into like a spring, like it goes flying. At a high enough speed impact with a big enough car, it would totally go airborne. But it might go airborne anyway. Would you rather go airborne and survive? It's so many great questions. Wow, great question. This opens up a lot of things. I wonder, is there a safety expert channel that covers Teslas in detail? Like how Jordan goes crazy on the batteries? Do you know anybody who does this for safety? No? All right. If you're in the comments and this is an area of expertise and you want to start a YouTube channel, I think this would be a really good one. It might be worth it. Just like what a segue. Bob, tell us about your channel that you're working on.
So it's called Not Legal Advice, and it's a legal
channel. It's on his name. Can we get it to read?
It's a legal channel relating to Tesla, Elon, and in general. And it also is kind of trying to demystify the legal processes so people are not freaked out if they're in that future situation. And today I'm recording a video, and I'll be talking about that Houston accident that happened in 2021 and the result that just happened.
Awesome. I'm very excited. I think this is great. It's super helpful to have your expertise on this forum because you just give such great insight. So I highly recommend you go subscribe to his channel. Not legal advice. Get it? Puns. Hey, so good from the master of puns. And yeah, I really appreciate you. And then at the bottom of our names, you can also see our handles. Let me see if I can do it with my finger. Look at this technology. There's one, and it doesn't reach right. You're a different person. Hans and Bob, go follow us on Twitter if you're interested. And if you do want to support the channel, I have links to the Patreon and YouTube right below. You can click on join. We'll give you access to our private Discord, which is where we're going right now. We're going to continue our discussion for another hour or so on our private Discord with my community. And again, half of the earnings from this stream will go into our community fund, and my community will decide what they want to do with that, with those earnings. They can either sit on it, buy some Tesla stock, donate it, throw a party. The community decides what they want to do. I have zero input. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate you guys for joining us again. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, mods. I didn't thank my mods last time. You guys do incredible work. Everybody out there, DRK, Donald, Mimi, everybody. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate you. Incredible work every single week. So thankful. And last but not least, the love of my life, producer wife. Thank you so much for your continued help. Excellent work. Love you, baby. And we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, the video.